It's a busy Monday here at Out of the Groove. The NASCAR Cup Series is going to have a new name in 2020, and it is just that, the NASCAR Cup Series. Also, we've got some silly season updates surrounding the biggest free agent on the market, Daniel Suarez, and also some news coming out of the banquet from last week. It's a full show. Let's get to it. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric, and welcome to Out of the Groove. Hope y'all had an amazing weekend, but now we're back at it. Monday edition of the show. Let's go and start with this. Let's dive right in. Let's start with the awards banquet that happened at the end of last week, last Thursday and Friday. Nothing too notable came about this. This was the first year that the banquet was in Nashville, and from what I could tell, the Nashville people seem to really enjoy having NASCAR in their backyards for a couple days there. I know NASCAR SMI, Dale Jr. is still lobbying to get the fairgrounds back on the Cup schedule at one point, trying to get that track renovated, trying to get that city invested in a full-time NASCAR date. But I don't know if that's really going to work out. But this weekend was kind of, some people are looking at it as the proving ground. Look at all these fans that turned out for the burnouts on Broadway. The awards banquet itself. I don't know, y'all. As optimistic as I am, the few thousand people I guess we saw, in the streets of Nashville this past week, I don't know if that alone is going to be enough to convince that whole city to change its mind and fully invest in that racetrack. But time will tell. I do like NASCAR experimenting with a new kind of host city for the awards banquet. Las Vegas was great and everything, but Nashville kind of just felt more themed to NASCAR. Las Vegas always felt a little too glitzy for NASCAR. Nashville seems more, where NASCAR is really at home. Burnouts on Broadway were pretty cool. Not a whole lot came out of the awards banquet. Most notable bit of news here is that Chase Elliott won his second consecutive NASCAR Most Popular Driver award, so congratulations, Chase. He's still got ways to go to match his father, Bill Elliott, who won a record 16 straight Most Popular Driver awards, but Chase Elliott's very young. I think there's a very good chance he will beat that record, but we'll address that again in a decade or so. It won't be news until then. Chase Elliott had a really solid year, though. His win at the Roval in September was iconic. That's the first one of Chase Elliott's wins. He's now got, 6 wins in the Cup Series, the points-paying wins. That was his first win that really, I think we're going to talk about that race for many years to come. When we go back and look at Chase Elliott's career highlight reel, that race at the Roval from this past year with the issues he ran into, he found himself in, the mistakes that were made, and the comeback, the recovery, I think that's one we're going to talk about for a long time. That was an all-time great performance in that one. So Chase Elliott winning the Most Popular Driver award, not shocking at all. However, NASCAR did reveal the top 5 vote getters, and some of these names were a little surprising. So Chase Elliott won the Most Popular Driver award. In second place was the champion this year, Kyle Busch. The third highest vote getter was Matt DiBenedetto. Fourth was Martin Truex Jr. And fifth, Ryan Blaney. This list absolutely floored me. Now, Kyle Busch finishing second, about where I expected. I expect Kyle Busch to be in the top 3 most popular drivers. Obviously, also the top 3 least popular drivers, but I expect Kyle Busch up in there. Shocked that there's no Jimmy Johnson. When I went to the races this year, I saw a lot of Jimmy Johnson merchandise. I think this data is slightly skewed because most of the voting is done on social media. They encourage you to share a lot of this stuff on Twitter and Facebook, all that type of stuff. And let's be real, Twitter and everything's kind of a younger generation's things. That's why I think you see Ryan Blaney and Matt DiBenedetto up in that top 5. And maybe guys like Jimmy Johnson, Kevin Harvick, who I think genuinely are still more popular than those drivers, not in the top 5. Because when I go to the racetrack, I'd see a lot of Jimmy Johnson merch, but most of the time it was kind of older fans wearing it. Same with Harvick as well. You get plenty of young fans as well, but mostly older fans. And let's be honest, I don't think as many older fans are going to go on Twitter and share that they voted for Jimmy Johnson. I don't think that's going to be nearly as common. So I think the data is skewed there, but that's why I find this really interesting, because ultimately young fans are going to drive NASCAR into the future. And so who are the younger fans seemingly most interested in? It's Matt DiBenedetto, it's Kyle Busch, it's Ryan Blaney, Truex even. I was a little surprised to see Truex up there, but he's won over a lot of fans in recent years. Chase Elliott, obviously. I guess that when I think of it that way, of who the younger fans are really interested in, I guess it's not too surprising. On the Xfinity side of things, Justin Allgaier won the Most Popular Driver award, got that Junior Motorsports backing, not too shocking there. And then the Truck Series, Ross Chastain, the Melon Man, why I'm wearing the Melon Man hat this week, he won the Truck Series Most Popular Driver award. That one's not too shocking as well. I think he's going to continue to make waves as he moves through the ranks in good equipment. But there you have it. That was the biggest news I found from the banquet. Chase Elliott winning Most Popular Driver, not too shocking, but it was a little interesting to see who the other runner-ups were. Anyway, let's talk about now some industry type, behind the scenes type news. NASCAR revealed the name of the NASCAR Cup Series for 2020. Remember, NASCAR is doing away with their traditional, single title sponsor model. Since the 70s, it was the Winston Cup Series, then obviously Nextel Sprint, and now Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series. That's still a mouthful. I can't believe they signed off on that. But starting this next year in 2021, there will no longer be a single title sponsor of the Cup Series. It will be called the NASCAR Cup Series. Take a look at the logo here. Simple, yeah, but pretty clean. I don't hate it. I actually like it pretty well. Pretty clean, simple, yes, not gonna blow anyone's mind, but I think simple is often better. And as I've been reported for months now, NASCAR is going forth with their new sponsorship model, which features several premier partners. No one single title sponsor, it's gonna be several kind of presenting partners. And NASCAR revealed earlier this weekend who those 4 partners are gonna be this next year. Coca-Cola, Xfinity, Busch Beer, and Geico. Those are gonna be the 4 presenting partners. All 4 of these companies are upping their investment in NASCAR this next year, and actually all of them signed somewhere between 3 to 5 year deals. They didn't specifically disclose how long each partner is signed on for, but NASCAR did say that they staggered them slightly, somewhere between 3 to 5 years. So we will have these 4 presenting partners for at least the next few seasons. Now, a couple interesting details about this new sponsorship format. Monster Energy had exclusivity rights in a sense when they were sponsoring the title sponsor of the sport. No other energy drinks could come in and work with the teams. It was Monster Energy had full-on NASCAR exclusive rights. You didn't see Red Bull coming in there. You didn't see Coca-Cola, Xfinity, Geico, Busch Beer. They do not have exclusivity rights, which means, Farmers Insurance could go sponsor a race team one week. Dr. Pepper could sponsor a car one week. Coca-Cola, Xfinity, Geico, they're not going to come in and shut that down. And I think that's a good thing. That lifts some of the restrictions from the race teams as far as what kind of sponsors, what kind of companies they can pursue and try to get sponsorship from, because there are a lot of very big, very wealthy, insurance companies, telecommunication companies beyond Geico, beyond Xfinity, and I think it's important for race teams to at least have those options out there to possibly to go talk to. As far as actual financial details from this deal, none of that was disclosed. From what we'd heard, from what we knew, Monster Energy the last few years as the title sponsor was paying a lot less money than Sprint/Nextel was paying during that last run, so that's probably what prompted NASCAR to kind of want to change their business model, and I think this is really smart for NASCAR. I've talked about this a little bit before, but it's very smart for NASCAR to kind of be diversifying where they get their income from. Being solely reliant on one sponsor to fund your entire series or to sponsor your entire sport, that puts a lot of pressure on that one sponsor. What if they leave? Suddenly you're in a big, deep hole. You're in a deep pit here. By now having 4 major partners that are all pouring money into this pie, I guess, if one of those sponsors does leave, you still have 3 others funding most of it for you. So the loss is not nearly as hard to stomach. So I'm all for NASCAR opting to move towards this business model, and it's exciting that these 4 major companies, major partners of racing, have all stepped up their game even a little bit more for 2020 and beyond. That's really cool for NASCAR. That proves that there's some still big partners out there that really believe in racing and are really getting a serious return on their investment from sponsoring the sport. Now, another thing I like about this is that we will be switching the name to the NASCAR Cup Series. I love that that's all it's going to be, just the NASCAR Cup Series. Easy to remember, easy to understand. That's one thing I hear, granted, very casual fans, but when I try to talk to people that don't really follow racing, when I try to talk to people ever about NASCAR, I've had this conversation multiple times in my life where people ask me, well, what's the difference between the Sprint Cup Series and the Monster Energy Cup Series? And obviously I roll my eyes, but I can't blame them because they're not fans. They don't watch racing. They kind of pay attention to it on the outliers. Maybe they're interested in becoming racing fans, but they don't really know where to start. And to someone who's kind of an outsider looking in, that can be very confusing if we're changing the title sponsor, changing the name of the series every few years. Yes, it always has Cup in the name, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything. I mean, the Piston Cup exists for darn's sake. Changing the name to just the NASCAR Cup Series for the foreseeable future, I think is very important from a branding perspective. It'll help people who maybe aren't that interested in racing at least know that they're talking about the same series each time, and might ultimately draw more eyeballs in if they know what they're watching. There's probably someone out there that didn't know the Monster Energy Cup Series was the old Winston Cup Series. There's probably somebody out there that didn't know they were the same series. So I really do like it from a branding perspective. Now NASCAR is also planning on keeping the windshield banners that they've had the last few years with Monster Energy, even though they're not going to have a title sponsor on the banners. Bob Hocker's tweeted out this mock-up of what I guess they are potentially going to look like, and I must say, I don't really think this is necessary, but alright. In case you need to make it even more clear that these are Cup Series race cars, I guess we might have those windshield banners next year. That hasn't been confirmed yet. That's just what I guess they're possibly looking at, but we'll wait and see on that one. There might be something contractually with the manufacturers that they need to put their Ford, Chevy, Toyota logo on the windshield banner, so they might still have to have those banners, but I don't know if I like it just saying Cup Series like that. That just seems a little unnecessary. Anyway, that was the big business news from this past week. We'll see what kind of effects it has long term. I hope that this model proves to be efficient, proves to be successful for NASCAR, the sport, and it hopefully helps out the teams as well, helps them possibly land other sponsorship deals, maybe with competitors, Coca-Cola competitors. Maybe we'll see Pepsi on a car again. You never know. Anyway, I think that's exciting. Again, the next generation of NASCAR is right around the corner. It's starting to take shape. Anyway, last thing I want to talk about in this episode, I got some silly season stuff, some silly season rumors, some speculation, some concerns I have for one of the key free agents still on the market right now. Daniel Suarez has spent his last 3 seasons driving for 2 of the best teams in the Cup Series, and he is still without a ride here in December. We're about to go on Christmas break, holidays around the corner, people aren't going to be wanting to work during the holidays, and Suarez doesn't have a deal done. So this is a very real question I have right now. Is Daniel Suarez in trouble? Has his career already run its course? So let's talk about some of the options that reportedly have been on the table for Daniel Suarez. Originally, it was reported that he was in talks with Richard Childress Racing to possibly run a third Cup car for them, and then I heard those talks devolved into, can he run a part-time third Cup car for them? And then they devolved even further into, maybe Daniel Suarez will just run an Xfinity car for RCR, possibly that 2 car that Reddick just won the championship in. But new reports suggest that pretty much all the talks between RCR and Daniel Suarez have fallen through. From the sounds of it, Daniel Suarez reportedly turned down their offers. RCR President Tony Gallita actually had this stuff to say when talking about negotiations with Daniel Suarez. When asked about a full-time Xfinity car for Suarez, Gallita said, "We could still do that and we would do that. That's the kind of opportunity we would be interested in." He went on to say, "I think he knows what we've got to offer, and I think he's just weighing his alternatives and trying to determine what is best for him. I'm sure that going back to the Xfinity Series is not his first choice. I think in the right equipment, it could be a really good move for him." That article was written about 4 days ago, and then the very next day it was reported by Bob Pockrass that now the RCR Xfinity deal is a long shot, so it sounds like Suarez really did just turn down the number 2 Xfinity car. Now, was it Daniel Suarez who turned it down, or maybe it was Eris, the main sponsor that's driving Daniel Suarez's future? Maybe they refused. Maybe they turned it down. Maybe they won't let Daniel Suarez go back down to the Xfinity Series. That's a very real possibility. The thing is, if Daniel Suarez and his group really turned down this Xfinity deal with RCR, I just think they're making a big mistake, because if we look at his Cup Series options, there's nothing. There's nothing good out there. Best case, he ends up in a Front Row Motorsports car, but I've heard that that was never really on the table for him, and it sounds like Front Row Motorsports might have already selected their 2 drivers next year, John Hunter Nemechek and Michael McDowell. Those are the 2 front runners I've been hearing, and that have been publicly reported at least as well. And then beyond that, I mean, Corey LaJoie's back with Go Fast, so he's not going to go there. Obviously, he's been outed from SHR. He's not going to Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't think Penske's going to open up a 4th car. I don't think Levine's going to open up a 2nd car. There are no competitive rides on the market. Recently, the number 1 option I've heard is Gaunt Brothers Racing, the 96. Daniel Suarez could be in that car. I mean, that's a 35th place car. Daniel Suarez might make it a 32nd place car, but that's a 35th place car. Daniel Suarez has been in top equipment for 3 years. He's not done much in top equipment, sure, but to go from that to that, when the number 2 Xfinity car, a championship car in the Xfinity Series, was available, I just don't understand it. Apparently, if I had to guess, Eris really wants Suarez to stay in the Cup Series, because it doesn't matter what team you drive for. If you're in the Cup Series, you get so many more eyeballs, so much more attention, so much more kind of just notoriety, I guess, just by being in the Cup Series, that I'm sure for Eris as a partner, as a sponsor, they really want Suarez on the biggest stage every single week, even if he's not in the best equipment. That being said, I don't know, just when you turn down the best car in Xfinity, that 2 car is arguably the best car in the Xfinity Series. If you don't have an option lined up on the Cup Series side, I don't know why you do that. I don't know why you turn that down. Now, as you guys know, I listen to Corey LaJoie's Sunday Money podcast. He often gives a lot of little tidbits, little interesting behind-the-scenes details. And just last week, he said that he talked to Daniel Suarez, and let's just say Corey LaJoie said in his podcast that he was genuinely worried for Daniel Suarez and his Cup Series future, because it sounds like Daniel Suarez is not sure where he's going to end up next year. It sounds like maybe with this RCR stuff falling through, he's kind of running out of options here. He's no longer, he's kind of, the phrase beggars can't be choosers. Suarez is kind of in that position now. But now, if I'm a Daniel Suarez fan, if I'm one of Daniel's amigos, which I really like Daniel Suarez, I really want him to stay in the Cup Series, or at the very least stay in NASCAR and something competitive. I really want to see Suarez get another shot one day to make it in the Cup Series. But if I'm a fan of Daniel Suarez, I wouldn't get too worried just yet. I mean, keep in mind, he didn't sign, the SHR deal until January, just a couple weeks before Daytona. Suarez has a flair for the dramatic, perhaps. May take a month, might take a few more weeks, but maybe at the end of January, we will find that Daniel Suarez is in a very good position for 2020. But time will tell, and right now, it just seems confusing. I'm surprised that he and his group seem to be very against that Xfinity program. I don't know what Richard Childress was offering him. Maybe it would be too much of a pay cut. I have no idea, but it's disappointing. Daniel Suarez can drive a race car. I know Daniel Suarez gets a lot of flack because he has underperformed ever since he got into the Cup Series, but let's not forget, he did win 3 races in the Xfinity Series in 2016 and the championship that year. And you look at Joe Gibbs Racing's Xfinity program the last few years. I mean, this year, outside of Christopher Bell and Kyle Busch, Joe Gibbs Racing Xfinity cars didn't look that good. Suarez has definitely been a disappointment in the Cup Series, but for him to be out of the sport at this point, given that he even has some funding behind him, I would be very surprised. That would be very shocking to me, but let me know what you guys think down in the description. Where do you think Suarez ends up? Leave a comment down below. I look forward to reading your responses. Thank you all so much for watching this episode. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, subscribe if you're new. We're over that 100,000 threshold, which is still, I don't know, doesn't quite feel real just yet, but a big thank you to all of you who watch and support these videos, and also, of course, a big thank you to my Patreon supporters. Mike Waffles, Michael Harrison, at Cheers the Stars, Cameron James, John Koblenz, Isaac Dennison, Mika Stokuzuki, iFantasyRace.com, TheRacingInsiders.com, Matthew Koulopoulos, Pepe Lucius, Jeremy Conkey, Emilio Garcia, Joey DiMancino, Sky Racing Form, Bryce Schumacher, Bryce Starcher, Scott Mick, Cole Austin, and the rest of these incredible Patreon supporters. I couldn't do this without the support I get from you all every single week, every single month, so thank you for your continued support of Out of the Groove of the show. I got some other episodes planned later this week. If you missed any of my videos from last week, I did my top 10 favorite and my top 10 least favorite paint schemes of 2019. Certainly got quite a few people talking and arguing or debating in the comments, so if you missed those, definitely go check those out. But I'll see you guys again very, very soon. I still have some stuff that I want to cover this week, and I'm sure we'll get to it pretty soon. So have a great rest of your Monday, everyone. I'll see you again very, very soon, y'all. Bye.